just want to just really quickly welcome you all into the space. So happy that so many folks are here and are going to be getting this great information tonight about compensatory education, something I get a lot of calls about. My role, if you don't know me, is I'm the special education ombudsperson for SFUSD. And my whole job is about making sure families and staff have the information they need to navigate our complex special education systems. And with that said, I am really excited to have Matt Lavoie and Maggie Michaels with us tonight. They are our special education directors, and I'm going to pass to Maggie.
Excuse me. Good evening, everyone. My name is Maggie Michaels Espinoza. I'm a director with SFUSD. I support our pre-K, K through 5, and K-8 schools with their special education programming. And I will pass it to Matt Lavoie.
Thank you, Maggie. Good evening. My name is Matt Lavoie. I'm a director with San Francisco Unified School District Special Ed Services, and I oversee our special ed programming in our middle schools, high schools, adult ed programs, county programs, and our non-public schools. And I don't know who I'm passing it to. Back to Julia, maybe.
I don't mind helping you, Matt. We're going to pass it off to introduce the Support for Families team next. Once again, my name is Melissa Cirillo. I'm the education manager here at Support for Families. I'm going to pass it to Flavia next.
Hello, hello. Thank you, Melissa. My name is Flavia Valdez, and I'm the Senior Education Specialist at Support for Families. Thank you so much for being here, and I'm super excited about this workshop, and I will pass to Trang.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Trang Nguyen, and I am an education specialist at Support for Families, and I'm very happy to be here with y'all. And I will occasionally monitoring the chat, so feel free to have any question list there, and I and the whole team will try our best to answer your questions. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. And I want to appreciate those people who are in attendance. I see a couple of Support for Family members here as well, but I will not put you on the spot. All right, without further ado, we're going to move through our workshop. Friendly reminder, we are recording this. Please ask questions that you feel comfortable asking with the knowledge that it will be recorded and posted on YouTube. So we are calling this into our introduction into Comp Ed. I am going to use the word Comp Ed, but we all now know that it's a short term for compensatory education. This has been last updated this month, January 2025. We want to timestamp this because we acknowledge that changes are being actively made in SF Unified School District. We want to say that our free workshops through Support for Family are provided by grants. This is one of our grants that offers the opportunity to host this workshop that you're in attendance. Naming out loud that we're a nonprofit organization, we just have this disclaimer here as well. I'm going to move my chat screen so I can better support reading this. So today we have our purpose and our objectives. Ultimately, we want to provide parents and professionals with an overview of how to ask and request Comp Ed services, as well as support families to advocate for their child's missed special ed services that may not be provided in their individualized education program, as we know that is called an IEP. We also are acknowledging and appreciating San Francisco Unified School District for attending today to clarify any questions specifically about prior written notices that were sent out on January 3rd, and also providing any other additional insight for requesting Comp Ed and what to do after receiving a PWN. I just want to pause. Julia, Matt, or Maggie, do you want to add anything here to the purpose or the objectives of today's workshop? Great, thank you. I know that a lot of families here are senior parents for children with IEPs, but in order for us to all be on the same page, we took this time to identify what is an IEP. It's an individualized education program, an IEP, and it's a legal binding document that outlines a child's specialized instruction and related services. Students can have IEPs that provides an outline for speech services, for specialized academic support, and various other services are outlined. If you have any additional questions or inquiries about it, we have a link right here so you can get more information about what is an IEP. I want to share later that we will talk about the parameters of how to receive a copy of these slide decks emailed to you. It's important for us all to be on the same page to understand that there's two categories of IEPs. There's the annual IEP, which means that your IEP team meets once a year to review your child's IEP and to update goals. That would include progress on goals and pitching additional new goals for the upcoming school year or the annual year from when that IEP is hosted. The next IEP is called a triennial. These happen every 3 years where your student will participate in assessments to gather data in order to evaluate their IEP needs and the services that they're being provided. On your student's triennial year, they will have both an annual IEP and a triennial, so goals will still be discussed while using the data from formal assessments to guide the IEP team. So if you want to learn more about IEPs, Support for Family offers our monthly IEP workshops. Right here, we have it here where we have our first Thursdays from 6 to 8 p.m. offered in Cantonese, second Thursdays from 4 to 6 in English, and our third Thursdays 4 to 6 in Spanish. I also will have a QR code to later in the slide deck to Support for Families workshops where you can register for IEP clinics or any additional workshops we may have. And it'll have the most updated information on times and dates. I want to make sure that we all are understanding our parents' rights, giving the baseline of understanding of ADEA. So this requires school districts to provide appropriate public education, FAP, to enable to make sure that children are eligible with children with disabilities from 3 to 21 years old are eligible for access to free, appropriate public education. Special education and related services are also part of this act, and that is directly connected to IEPs. At every annual IEP and triennial IEP, your IEP team will present you with the procedural safeguards. So that is just your education rights in the special education process. And it's outlined, I have to laugh because it is quite a heavy, large document with lots of pages, but you have access to this at every IEP. If for some reason your IEP team doesn't offer you it, you will have the right to request it. But I know SFUSD is really good at offering and making sure that this information is provided to their families. It is even posted on their website. Right here is an example of what you can find on their website. I just did a little screenshot here. I provided a direct link to their website, and it's posted in a variety of different languages, and really taking the time to highlight what the education team here at Support for Families wanted you to see are your rights in the procedural safeguards. I'm going to move forward. So I know that some families have received PWNs, prior written notice, and I want to pass the mic over to Maggie so she can take an opportunity to further explain what is a PWN and what you may have received and what it looks like.
Sure. So a prior written notice, so it's a legal document that informs parents about decisions affecting their child's education that happens outside of an IEP meeting. So parents have a right to receive the PWN in their native language. The PWNs that were sent out on January 3rd should have all been translated. If you need them in another language, please let us know. So essentially, the contents of a prior written notice are a description of the action, so what's happening, the reason for that action, the different factors that were considered, and any other relevant facts. And then typically there's some sort of follow-up steps, which we'll get into a little bit on a later slide for this particular PWN.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Maggie. I just want to name out loud that I appreciate the visual of what it would look like. Just for clarification for the families, this is a screenshot of a copy of a PWN, correct?
Yes, that is
Perfect.
actually a screenshot of yes, it is a screenshot of a sample PWN. Yes.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
And they can be confusing to read. So I know like Julia and her role is really good at interpreting them. If you go to your school site, they can also help you if you're confused about what's being offered.
Perfect. I agree with you, Maggie. I love that you mentioned that. Definitely Julia is a point person to help you read through and understand a PWN. I also want to say that you can reach out to your parent mentors here at Support for Families as well, and we're happy to help you read that too. Beautiful. Okay, I'm going to move forward. Maggie, I'm actually going to keep you on the mic. I feel like this is another place where we can use your expertise.
Yeah, so this is kind of an update as to where we are regarding compensatory services, specifically for specialized academic instruction. So specialized academic instruction are services that are provided by a special education teacher. There might be folks on the call who are concerned about a different type of service, such as speech or occupational therapy. But what I'm talking about right now is specific to the services provided by a special education teacher called specialized academic instruction, or SAI. So on January 3rd, SFUSD sent out prior written notices via email to all families of a student who was impacted by a teacher vacancy, a special education teacher vacancy this fall. And then hard copies were also sent home by the school site. So if you, so all of those should have gone out and you should have received one if you are among that group of individuals. So if there's a special education teacher vacancy at your site, you should receive a PWN, which included an offer of compensatory services to cover the fall semester.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Maggie. Anyone from SFUSD would like to add to this slide before I move forward? Great. I just want to echo. Yes?
Sorry for interrupt. If
Of
you can
course.
speak a little bit slower, would be great.
Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate that feedback, whoever provided that. Thank you very much. And Flavia, thank you for making sure that that was directly provided to me. My apologies for everybody that I was speaking fast. Happy to slow down. And if you still feel like I need to slow down or any of our presenters need to slow down, please do not hesitate to provide feedback in real time. Oh, just to add, should I go back and do I need to show another slide or review any other slides for anybody? All right. I'm going to go ahead and move forward. Thank you, Flavia. What is Comp Ed? So we've been seeing this a lot in the media lately. I know it's a topic that has been discussed a lot, but taking a moment to really define. I know that Maggie spoke a little bit about it as well, but it is offered by a school district to provide extra services and supports because of their lack of or failure to create or implement an appropriate IEP. For example, we've heard Maggie provide this as well. Let's say a speech therapist is not hired at your child's school, therefore they're not receiving speech services, that would be an example of a need to apply for Comp Ed. Maggie or Matt, do you want to add anything else? Oh, Julia, do you want to add anything else? Perfect. I'm practicing wait time for interpretation.
Hey, Melissa, I would just like you to clarify, you said extra services. These aren't extra, these are makeup for missed services when we're talking about compensatory, right?
You are correct. So it would be what if your child was identified a specific service on their IEP and they were not receiving those minutes that are documented on their IEP, that would be a reason to apply for a comp ed. For example, if my child who is in elementary school is receiving one 30-minute session a week for speech, however, the school site does not have a speech therapist on site, therefore they're not receiving that once a week 30-minute session, that would be a reason to file a comp ed request. Does that clarify your question?
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for asking. So the goal is to address the academic and service gap caused by the incomplete implication of the IEP. So using that example, I always use the speech example. That would be a way for you to request, a need for you to request for a comp ed. We have a little list here about what are the types of services that you can that comp ed will include. So we have additional academic support, we have related services, we have behavioral support, we have assistive technology, and we put other services. I really want to empower everybody in this room that if you feel like, and you'll see this later in the slide deck, but if you feel like there's a need for you to request comp ed, reach out to your ed team, specifically those on school site. And you can always loop in your education supervisor too. But the first step is sitting down and having this conversation. If you do not have an upcoming annual IEP, you can always request an amendment meeting, and that is something that your IEP team can schedule for you. You do not have to wait for your upcoming annual IEP. We've talked about these scenarios a couple times, but just really circling back, I have here scenario number one, my child's speech therapist was gone for 3 months. The district didn't provide a replacement speech services during that time. What can I do? I would call an amendment meeting and discuss comp ed. We have scenario number two. The RSP position, that's the resource teacher at my child's school, has been open all year. So that means they did not have someone on staff during this school year. So my child isn't getting any of their services. My kiddo is falling behind and I'm nervous. Help! This is another great reason for you to call an amendment meeting with your IEP team at the school site to discuss your concerns, and that can lead to the conversation of comp ed. When you received this slide deck, we wanted to make sure that you had access to our support for families information about comp ed, and we offer it in different languages. So we'll put each of these little rectangle bars is a clickable link. So when you receive this PDF, you can just click on one of these rectangle bars and it will lead you to our one-pager about comp ed. So I just want to take a moment to pause and say that we did a lot of communication up to this part, which is more of the action item space in our workshop. We talked about what is an IEP. We linked our child's IEPs based off of our disability rights and our parent procedural safeguards. I provided links so you can access that information at your own time when you receive the slide deck. And now we explained what is Comp Ed, and now we're getting into what do I do next? What are my tangible action items? So this slide deck speaks to those families who received a PWN on January 3rd. Maggie, do you want to take the lead on this, or do you want someone else? Okay, perfect.
I'm happy to do
Thank
it.
you.
Um,
Perfect.
And I want to be clear, I mentioned this earlier, but the PWNs that went out on January 3rd were only for specialized academic instruction. I saw some questions in the chat about other services. And if there are missed services, work with your school site and your special education supervisor to follow up on those. But what I'm talking about right now is specific to specialized academic instruction due to a teacher vacancy. So included within the prior written notice that you should have received was basically a request that you respond. So there were two options for how these services could be made up. The first option would be reimbursement for private services. So that would be if you have a private educational specialist that you work with or a tutor and you want to be reimbursed for those services, then you would go ahead and follow the directions to be reimbursed, which I can go over at the bottom. Or the other option was that SFUSD can provide the services directly through one of the agencies that we contract with. So we work with agencies called non-public agencies that have staff that are able to provide specialized academic instruction. And we also are working with current SFUSD teachers as well. And our goal is between those two resources to provide the comp ed for those families who would prefer that we provide the services directly. So the steps are, once you decide which model works for your family, you would respond to the PWN. So within the PWN, there was a QR code, there was a Google form, or there was the option to send the completed paperwork, print and send it to Santiago, which is the special education office. If you received a PWN, all of these steps are included with it. Once you respond, then we're able to follow up with any next steps. If you chose the reimbursement model, then the PWN also included directions on how to be reimbursed for your services. Basically, you would need to provide proof of services, so a receipt of services, and proof of payment. So those things would need to be provided, but otherwise you would be good to go to pursue your compensatory services through that model.
Can you slow down just a little bit, please?
I know, I'm sorry, I always get this feedback. Is there anything you need me to repeat?
No, we're good.
Okay, I apologize. And Hava, I see your question in the chat. Specialized academic instruction are services within a student's IEP that are provided by a special education teacher. So those are the services that were provided for in the PWN that went out on January 3rd.
Thanks, Maggie. And I know there are a bunch of questions in the chat, and we're going to try and get through the whole deck, and then we're going to answer some of the specific questions because there's some really great questions in here. So please keep putting them in, and we are not ignoring you. We just want to get through the whole thing, and then we'll open up to questions.
Thank you, Julia. I really appreciate that. You read my mind. While Maggie was talking, I was reading some of the questions in the chat, and they're wonderful. We want to give you time at the end. That also, full transparency, might be why I'm talking fast. So going ahead and move to the next slide. Thank you, Maggie, for explaining the next steps on how to respond to the January 3rd PWN. Now, if you did not receive a PWN on January 3rd and you're interested in talking to your IEP team about Comp Ed, these are the 3 steps that we as Support for Families in collaboration with SFUSD have put together to support you on this journey. The first step would definitely be to email your case manager and your principal. These are your IEP team members on site. I encourage you, if your child has additional services such as speech or OT, to include them in this email as well, because they are part of your IEP team. So I just want to have a disclaimer that SFUSD may respond with a PWN, or you may need to specifically request in writing for one. And don't worry, we have your back. This is an example of a request that you can send to the IEP team talking about comp ed and requesting additional services or support for your child. Don't worry, you'll get a copy of this slide deck at the end of our presentation. So I just want to take a moment. We don't have to pair share. If you're comfortable, you can add things to the chat, but I want you to think about what answering these questions to help you guide you in what you'll write in your written request for comp ed. Is your child not receiving one or more of their services, i.e. speech, SAI? I appreciate that being defined. Thank you, Hava, for asking. Does your child's teacher and or support staff have the appropriate credentials or certification? We do want to just, Julia, I might want to make you have a moment of clarification regarding subs. Do you mind taking a moment clarifying that?
I am actually going to pass that to Mr. Lavoy, who's
Perfect.
here.
Thank you.
Can you repeat the
Thank you.
question?
My question is right here. This question comes up a lot while working with our families. If a child's teacher is there's not a special ed teacher in the classroom, however, there's a sub, I would like some clarification for the families. Does that qualify a request for comp ed?
It can depend. That's a tough question because in the eyes of the CDE, a substitute teacher is a credentialed person who can act on behalf of the staff member who is not present on any given day. So I can't answer that very clearly because it really could depend on the specific situation.
Would you feel comfortable saying and advising family members who might be in this situation to reach out directly to their IEP team and loop in their special education supervisor to ask this question and get clarity?
Absolutely, yes.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I appreciate you sharing that knowledge. Also naming, are there any delays in starting your child's services or assessments? For example, your triennial was in January. However, those assessments were not finished in time for your triennial date met. These are all great ideas for you to ponder in writing for your comp ed request. The last one says if your child is not progressing on your IEP, on their IEP goals. While you're mulling that over, we all want to make your lives easier. We provided the list of special education supervisors here in San Francisco Unified School District. You'll find schools listed under names. And then we provided a QR code here so you can go directly to SF Unified Schools website, but these are your special education supervisors. So when I'm saying contact them, this is your person. If your child's school is one of these, and so forth, and so forth, and so forth. All right, and then the third step is if you still feel like you need to talk and get more support with comp ed, we have the wonderful Julia Martin. She's the ombuds person here at San Francisco Unified School District. Her contact information is here. I encourage you to go use this QR code because it will allow you to schedule an appointment directly with her calendar. Honestly, Julia, I'm going to just say I think this is the easiest step to get in contact with you. And Julia, is it okay if you take a moment to define your role for any family members who might not know you and the work that you do?
Sure. So
Thank you.
hi again, everybody. I'm Julie Martin, SFUSD Special Education Ombudsperson. It is a weird name for a friendly role. I am here to help families get connected to resources. If you're calling me about Comp Ed and questions about who to contact, I would probably refer you to this slide that we just shared in the contacts link I just put in the chat, which is reach out to your supervisors because they are ready and up to date on what services your child should need, who you should talk to, what's going on with your school site, and all of the various questions. Like, they're going to be the best people to answer those. And I am always here to help those who still need a little extra support. So folks can reach out to me anytime. My role is to help people get connected to resources. And that said, I'm going to let us finish because I'm antsy to get to all the questions in the chat. So I don't want to take too long. So I'm going to pass it
Yes.
back.
Thank you, Julia. Naming our time, we're at 6:38, so we are going to keep moving forward to provide as much time for questions. We just want to make sure that if you disagree with the school district's comp ed offer, it's okay to disagree. The most important thing is that you communicate that you disagree. We don't want you living on an island all by yourself, thinking about how you disagree with the offer. We want you to communicate with your school site, with your special education supervisor, so that they know you disagree and you guys can start finding working collaboratively and work figuring out the next step. Move forward. We also want to make sure that you have access to a variety of different supports to help you navigate your IEP. Even if you just want support with understanding the IEP, checking in about your child's goals, or if you want more additional support through advocacy, these are some agencies that we collaborate with that we recommend. I also want to say that we have the acronym for Alternative Dispute Resolution is ADR. Support for Families will be offering an ADR workshop in collaboration with the Bar Association of San Francisco on February 10th. So we are collaborating here. If you are a family member that needs more support about understanding what is ADR or any other steps about dispute resolution, I would highly recommend signing up for the workshop coming up in February. We'll put a link to, Flavia, is it okay if I ask you to put a link? Perfect, she's already on top of it. Flavia is gonna put a link into the chat to register for that upcoming workshop. We also highly want to advocate CASE, their special education advocacy. They provide a free orientation phone call for you to call and talk about what's happening with your child and their IEP, and they can give you further support. And then we also want to mention that if you need a special education attorney, this is another agency that we would recommend. Moving forward, wanting to take a moment for support for families to highlight our upcoming workshops. We are very excited to share the upcoming workshop on February 1st for San Francisco Rec and Park TR and Inclusion Summer Camp Enrollment Support Workshop. We are very fortunate in San Francisco to have a very great Rec and Park program that offers specialized summer camp programs for kiddos with disabilities. And we also acknowledge that there's a lot of steps for signing up to that program. So Support for Families wants to give you the opportunity to get the insider scoop and information before the enrollment date starts at our upcoming February 1st workshop. I want to do this really quickly to save time for Q&A. We have an upcoming oral health series for students with disabilities, partnering with Cavity Free SF on February 3rd. Interpretation is provided at both of these workshops. And we are offering a Celebrate Love and Lunar New Year's with creativity, with a creative twist. We have a art workshop hosted by Trang. She's in this workshop right now. And this is for students that are 10 years and up, and we do have a capacity limit. So if you want to celebrate Valentine's Day and the Lunar New Year with some fun creative art projects and your child is 10 and older, feel free to enroll here. And then we are also partnering with CASE for IEP strategies to address school refusal. I know that this is a conversation that's coming up a lot in IEP meetings and a lot at home, students that don't want to come to school. We're partnering with CASE to offer this workshop on February 4th. The QR code is right here to scan to log on to Support for Families workshops, calendar to enroll in these workshops, or the plethora of different ones we offer. Gonna move forward. And before we close out for Q&A and I stop sharing screen, I just want to thank everybody for being here. I want to give you a round of applause for advocating for your child, taking the time in your evening to attend this workshop to learn more about Comp Ed and your parent rights. I want to thank SFUSD for being here to answer parent questions, to explain PWN and next steps. And I do really need everybody's help. We offer free workshops based off of surveys, and we need your feedback. This will help us make better workshops in the future and continue to offer them for free. I would like you to either scan the QR code. I also know one of the lovely Support for Staff members is putting the link in the chat. If we get 80% of participants to fill out the survey, we're going to email you this slide deck so you have access to it at home. So please, please, please take this time to fill out our surveys. Help support us in understanding the better ways that we can support you. I'm going to keep this screen on for a moment later, and I am going to open up the conversation with Support for Family staff and SFUSD staff. We have questions in the chat, and we will also make time for people to unmute if they have questions that they want to ask live.